Hi guys, welcome back to the Fermented World channel. Today we're brewing a mead with orange juice. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour the said orange juice into, well, we're going to do a litre of it first. Let us get this one used up because nobody likes these ones because the flaps are flipping annoying and it doesn't reseal. What you betting that I don't have my scissors? Oh my gosh, somebody hasn't stolen them. So everything's been sterilised apart from these containers. Even the fruit was sterilised. Let's just put that down there. We'll pick that up in a bit. And in with this orange juice. This is just cheap concentrate orange juice. We're going to make this as cheap as possible. I will put a breakdown of how much it costs. So that's 1 litre of orange juice in there. And we're going to use this orange juice here to make a tea. So what we're going to do is make sure we've got it all for starters. Don't want to waste any. I got some oranges and a lemon, and I got half a pack of mangrove jacks and 2 of the honey I use, which is Hilltop honey, blossom honey, cheap as chips and tastes gorgeous. I've got, like, these oranges are past it, but I'm gonna open them up and see what I can get out of them. I'm going to be leaving the peel of 1 orange and the peel of the lemon in the tea. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat this up and then we're going to let it sit once it's come to boiling point with all these in, and we're going to keep one of them to put into the ferment as well. So let's get a pan. We have got a pan, a knife and a clean plate. We'll be chopping these onto the clean plate. That can move out of my way temporarily. All the other bits we're going to need in a bit. So like I say, I'm going to be double checking that these are okay. So I'm just going to cut it in half. I mean, that's hardly even able to cut, but as long as we can get the juice out of it, I'm happy. Bit of juice, not a lot, but we're certainly not wasting it. The idea of this, it was to just use up these oranges that have just been left in the fridge, not doing out. No one's bothered about them. And, you know, as soon as I buy fresh ones, they'll be straight in there like, yeah, let's eat the fresh ones. So these are getting used up with this. Not sure what we're going to make, or well, I know what we're going to make. We're going to make a mead, but I'm not sure how it's going to turn out or taste like. But you know, I like to wing it. Now this one feels a bit tough. It looks all right inside, to be honest. And we will strain this as well because of all the little bits and stuff that we're going to have in there. Like so. We don't want the pips in the ferment, because some pips contain traces of arsenic. I don't know whether orange pips do. I know apple pips do, or apple seeds, whatever you call them. Alright, so I'm going to speed this bit up because it's just taking forever, and I'm just going to get all these juiced into there, and then I'm going to put in the carcasses. We're going to boil it up and we're going to take some out and use 1 carcass inside the ferment as well to try and bring out a bit of bitterness maybe. So yeah, let's speed this up and we shall see what we do. Okay, so we brought that to the boil. I'm just going to let it simmer gently for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to knock it off the boil and leave it for 20 minutes just to steep out and for it to collect any flavors that may or may not be coming from it. So be careful when doing this bit if you're following this, as this is very, very hot. Now we only want the juice and some of the carcasses. So be very careful whilst pouring this in. So we're going to put one of the lemon carcasses in. Carcass, is that the right word? No, skin. Peel. We're going to put one of the lemon peels in, and we're going to put one of the orange peels in, but we're going to be putting them in after, so we need to take them out now. So just be careful when doing this because they are hot. Just select a couple, preferably none that are browned in any way. Ouch. And just be very careful because it's flipping hot. Hotter. And the rest of the lemon. Right, so we're going to let them cool slightly so that I don't burn me sodding fingers again. Just squeeze out the juice from these because, like I say, we're not wasteful. We do not want to waste it. In fact, we've saved it by putting it to a use instead of it just ending up in the compost or the bin. And because we've heated it, I mean, I had to throw one of them away because when I cut it open, it was moldy inside. But I have double checked all of these as I've done it, and we're good. The heat from the boil, to be fair, would sterilize anything anyway, kill any bacteria. And the reason why we sterilize these before we use them, and then in the heat as well, is because we don't want any wild yeast getting in there and taking over our yeast, because wild yeast tends to give a sour flavor to things. So I'm going to say we're done with that. I don't think we're getting any more. So now we're going to use this, what we'd normally have as start water, which is what we're going to add our honey to. We have got 1,440 grams of honey. So now we add the honey, but I'm going to speed this bit up because it just takes forever. And we're then going to use some of the hot liquid in there to rinse out the honey pots with. Okay, so I've used 7 small oranges. I think they're Satsumas. I'm not 100% sure, but you can use any amount of fruit. You don't even have to use fruit if you don't want, because there's sugar content in the honey and the orange juice. It just adds an extra dimension to have that fresh fruit in there as well. So we've got our 2 lots of honey in. You can see that it's the honey sat below it, the hot liquid there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to stir this. It's going to mix in very, very quickly. So yes, we've got a lemon in there as well. Again, just to add an extra dimension to give it a bit more of a ooh kind of feel. That's the theory anyway. So we're mixing in the honey now, which won't take long because the orange juice is hot. You just want to make sure that when it drips like water and not like honey. Now we are at a high temperature, I know, which means we may have to cool this in the sink. Now, ideally, let me go see if I've got a colder one of these that I can swap it for. Okay, so I've snagged one from the fridge, which it may have a little bit less in. I might be losing about that much, but all in all, you're aiming for about 4.5 litres mark overall, because that's what this fermenter can do. That'll bring it up to about there, and it'll allow plenty of headroom for it to go wild and ferment the sugars. So one last quick stir. And obviously we're adding oxygen at this point as well. It's easier to do now than it is later, but we will add more oxygen as we add more orange. So let us add the cold orange juice first. And I've got one down there that was in the storeroom, which is my utility room where I just keep everything because there's no heaters in there. So that's not the one I want to use. Which one of these is the one that's been outside? It's this one. Just to try and cool it down to pitching temperature, otherwise we're going to have to put it in a bath of water. So that's brought us to the 4 litre mark, and that's using nearly 3 of these. So just bear that in mind, that you won't need the full 4 because your honey gives you added volume as well. There we go, bang on the box. So we've got 2 of these now that can go in the fridge for people to drink. Now I've just seen a bottle of apple juice and I'm thinking, oh, should I put some apple juice in it? But no, I've not done this before. It's completely experimental to see what happens and see what we get. So we're going to give this a good mix, and then we're going to add some yeast nutrients, which are very important, although we probably don't need them, because I bet you a penny to a pound of bob that the orange juice has got some sort of nutrient in there anyway, which would probably mean you don't actually need. Where's my spoon? Here it is. So 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrients. This just helps because the honey can be hard because it has no nutrients in it. So in it goes anyway, regardless of whether we need it. Let's get some oxygen in there. What I didn't do is sterilize my funnel, so I'm going to go do that. Okay, so funnel is sterilized. Now what we're going to do, we're going to get these 2 peels here and I'm going to slice them up into much finer pieces, because I don't want them to be hard to get out later, but I want them in there during the ferment, because the peel obviously gives a different taste to what the actual juice does. Now those what do you call them again? Orange peel and the lemon peel will go on the compost. Always bang it on the compost and slice again, just to make it easier for it to go in and easier for it to come out. Because if you put anything in there that's too large and it swells up, you're going to struggle to get it out. Now I do understand that this is adding bits again to it, totally understand that, but in the same time it's quite necessary for the added flavour that I want. So get rid of that little node, we don't want that. And get rid of the knife, we're finished with that. Then what we're going to do, we're going to bring this down, which is our fermenter, and we're just going to feed this in there before we add the liquid, because otherwise it will splash and splosh. Don't want that. As you're chopping, just make sure you're not putting any seeds in there. I don't think it's going to harm anything, but I'm not sure whether they contain any nasties. So if you can de-pip, do so. I didn't find any while I was looking, so I think we're good. Put that in there. Any extras that we can get in there, let's have it. Yeah, yummy. So one last mix now. Oxygenate, and it will oxygenate when we tip it into there as well, but ideally you'd want to do it before you put it into there. So now we're going to take a hydrometer test to see what we've got as a start gravity. Now it's going to be a lot higher than the one that we normally start with from that amount of honey in just water, because the orange juice has got its own sugar content, is what I meant to say. So let us see where we are at. Okay, it's gone past that on that hydrometer, so I've got to bring the other hydrometer out, which goes to a higher point of 160. So this one actually goes higher than this one. This one only goes up to 120, 1.120, as where this one goes up to 1.160. So it can measure something a lot higher. So one 1.138. So as always, all my notebooks on the floor. We're going to make notes as we go. I will fill all this in after as to how much juice I used, how much fruit I used, what yeast I used, how much honey I used, yada, yada, yada. But the main important thing is the original gravity, which is what I've just took now. 1.13248. 1.128. No, 38, sorry. So we're instantly going to get something above 15% easily. No questions asked. And we'll probably back sweeten this as well later with a little bit of honey, just to bring back any flavors. Might even buy some orange blossom honey to make it a bit special. It's expensive, but it's nice. But we'll see what we get anyway, because we might have something that's more than nice. You know, as long as you're happy with it, it's all good, isn't it? So we've taken the hydrometer reader. Now what we're going to do is transfer it into the fermenter. Now it says it's at 28-26, so that is okay. It's a little bit high. I normally prefer to let it go at my room temperature, which is about 22 in here roughly, but this can ferment at 15 to 30, so we're well within the parameters for the said yeast, so not too bothered really. In it goes. Is that the front door? Nope. So this will oxygenate it as well. The yeast needs a lot of oxygen to begin with, helps it form its colony and multiply and stuff like that, so that it's able to take on the sugars that's in the must. Must is another name for the honey water, basically, although this is honey orange, but same gist really. Should have sped this up really, but I'm nearly there now. And there we have it. It's at the perfect line for it to have plenty of room here to ferment and you know, fizz and stuff like that. Now, if you was to add all that fruit in there, what you'd get is you'd have to use less water, less orange juice, or less liquid, let's say. In general, this is a general rule if you're using fruits, because what happens is the fruits eventually, even if they sink to begin with, which reminds me, we're going to put in some raisins. We use these for tannins. Now, some people use tea. Now, once my raisins are gone, I will start using tea to see whether I can see a difference, but just a hand, not many, you know, and then bash them in. They just go in like that. A tip you may already know, but I'm going to mention it anyway. If you have a dog, not sure about cats, but if you have a dog, don't leave any dropped raisins about, because they'll gobble them up and they're highly toxic for them. Scientists still don't know why. They don't know what it is, but grapes and raisins are bad for your dog. So yeah, they're in there now. They'll eventually soak up some of the liquid and then float to the top and release what we call tannin. So we have completed the preparation. I'm happy to pitch at that temperature, and I wouldn't normally I'd cool it down, but it's going to cool down anyway. Half a packet of mangrove jack's yeast. You do not need a full packet. This can do 23 litres. One packet of that can do 23 litres of mead. We're doing a gallon, you know? We're doing 4.5 litres. So half is more than enough. Way more than enough. I used to use full packets, but then I watched a couple of videos from a couple in America called Brian and Derica from City Steading. Go check their YouTube out. It's bloody brilliant. they're the ones that inspired me to do this, actually start recording my brews. And I do it as a hobby anyway. I don't do it to make money, you know. It's one of them. So we do have a bit of yeast just stuck on the top there. So I'm just gonna manhandle it and just try and get that yeast off, because we don't really want it stuck to the sides like that, you see. We can wash it off somehow. It will be good. There we are. And there we go. Now, all we do, add an airlock. Write down what we're making. What should we call it? Because an apple mead is a sizer. I made a pear mead, pear juice mead, and I called it a pizer. A grape juice mead is called a piment. So I need to think of something daft for this. I'm probably not the first person to brew it, for sure, but we'll think about it. We'll call it orange mead for now. Original gravity is 1.138, and today's date is the 20th of the 4th, 23. Right. So yeah, there we have it. The start of the orange mead. Next time you see anything on this video, it will be where we are checking where the gravity is, checking how it tastes, and probably putting it into secondary with whatever we decide to throw in secondary with it. Like I say, it may be back sweetened, it may not. It depends where we catch it and what it bloody tastes like. Because there's no point adding more stuff to it, like some nutty professor, which is great, don't get me wrong. That's how I learned how to do it, by trying this and trying that and experimenting and seeing what works and stuff. I mean, this one here, this is what I call the half-blood Viking. This was created, yeah, using the same yeast, the same cherries that were fermented, and the same cherries that were dried, yeah, in a Viking's blood batch that I did. And you know what? It tasted gorgeous. I added more honey because it needed it, so that's going to be checked on today. And that's just experimenting, you know. I've made a mead that cost me nothing apart from the honey that I put in it, which would have been about £7. £7 for 4.5 litres of mead. Can't scoff at that. Anywho, I'm jabbering now. Thanks for watching. Welcome to all new subscribers, and thank you to all old subscribers. Thank you for following along with the madness, and we'll see what we've got coming next.